Meeting on August 4th, 2022, back in session. Roll call, please.
Carlson, Vieira, Maniscalco.
Here.
Hurtek.
Here.
Goods.
Here.
Miranda.
Here.
And Citro.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
All right, I've got a couple things here. Mr. Spearman, I believe that you and Chief Bennett were going to have a few words beforehand.
That is correct. Good morning, Council. Greg Spearman, Director of Purchasing. I will be making a brief presentation to you this morning regarding some of the initiatives that the city has been involved with regarding equal business opportunity. So I'm going to put some things on the Elmo for you. And the first item that we want to share with you, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a new initiative that the city is embarking on, and involves builder's risk insurance. So just so that you know, builder's risk insurance is that insurance that covers any risk of loss or damage that a construction firm might have on a construction project. We do require all of our city construction contracts to carry builder's risk. So the question was asked by Councilman Goods, you know, do we have any minority insurance companies or city-owned certified firms that provide builder's risk? So we looked at that. We had a team to come together that included purchasing, risk management, contract administration, equal business opportunity, and legal to look at how we could go about making sure that we had inclusion in this particular area in terms of small minority insurance companies to provide builder's risk insurance to our prime construction contractors. So when we looked through that process, we actually developed a request for application, RFA, okay? And we wrote the application, a request for application for builder's risk insurance requirements. We released that to only City of Tampa certified firms. We did receive 3 responses. One of those was non-responsive. We had 2 others that were responsive. And those firms were Ballard H. Houston and Associates and A+ Accuracy Insurance. And just so that you know, A+ Accuracy Insurance is currently a certified woman-owned business, and they are a subcontractor now to our property and casualty insurance provider, McGriff. So these 2 firms were selected as meeting those requirements for builder's risk insurance. And so they will be included in terms of developing the project task worksheet in terms of goals for construction projects. It'll be mandatory that our prime construction contractors reach out to these 2 firms to get quotes for builder's risk insurance. And of course, when those bids come back in, the Equal Business Opportunity Office, along with the Goal Set Committee, will review those bid responses to make sure that they are in compliance in terms of the good faith effort, and also in terms of meeting the goal that's set for builder's risk insurance. So that's the first update for you, okay? The second update that we want to give to you is on our job order contract. And this is a contract that we put in place to handle small and medium-sized renovation and construction projects. Okay, so in this particular contract, the goal was to make sure that we increase BBE participation. That's one of the things that council had asked us to do. So we started the contract in 2020. We had about $1.7 million that we ran through in terms of projects. The BBE participation we started in the year was only about 1.46%, okay? So as you see in 2021, the value of the contract, or the amount of projects or work orders, was about $2.3 million. Our BBE participation increased from 1.46% to 4.34%. And in 2022, we had about, to date, it's the year's not over yet, just under 1.5 million. So our BBE participation has gone up to 28.1%. So we are making progress in terms of making sure, not just in the BBE area, but WMB participation overall. But we did have an emphasis in terms of making sure we had more BBE participation. And this contract is actually helping us to achieve greater participation in that area. All right, and then the last update I have for you is on our shelter market program. And this would include bids that we review with the Shelter Market Review Committee, with Mr. Hart and his team, in terms of those bids that we can actually shelter. Now, what is a shelter market solicitation? If we have 3 or more firms who are certified by the Equal Business Opportunity Office that can provide a commodity, good, or service to the city, okay? And the cap of the contract value does not exceed $300,000, that particular project is sheltered, meaning only those firms that are within that particular protected group can bid on it. We take it out of the normal bidding cycle where there are other larger firms they're competing against, and only the small firms compete amongst themselves. So for 2022, we've had 59 such instances, okay? And we estimate that by the end of this particular year, we'll have 12 more, a total of 66. Now, the value of those awards and renewals is just a little under $10 million, $9.8 million. And we estimate for the entire fiscal year, will probably be around just under $12,000. So we've had a % increase from 2021 to 2022, about 5%. So these are just some quick updates for you, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Any comments or questions? Councilman Goods.
You know, it's a good day to say, like I always say, don't tell me what you can't do, but what you can do. Prime example with the builder's risk. You know, sometimes we get stuck in the mud and we stay still. It's where we've always done it. We don't really want to muck it up, but it comes a time when sometimes you have to get some new sand in there to get it stirring a little bit better. So I'm glad that we'll have some opportunities for other people. I know that one company in particular has been fighting for this for many, many years. Glad I was able to push the envelope on this to get this moving. So I'm very excited about that. Reference to your EBO numbers, when you look at that 1.6% to now at 28.6%, again, not what we can't do, what we can do. We just have to change minds, philosophies at times to make things move. So I'm glad that we're in the era that we're doing that. Everyone knows when I have my agenda staff review, the first thing I ask, before I look at the dollar amount, I want to know what are the EBO numbers. Am I right, Mr. Spearman? Mr. Barrett, you know, what are the numbers? I'm going to continue to ask that because that's what the community asked me to ask, and that's what they've always wanted, just to have a bite of the apple. I think we're going in the right direction, but we're going to continue to strive to get better numbers. But I can't argue right now because we do have some improvements. So again, to staff, thank you for taking the hats off and opening it up to say what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Spearman, maybe somebody in the audience can also answer this. I wrote down a couple of things, some I talked about this morning. When you're talking about insurance on whatever project it is, and what a surety is what? That something is going to get done within time with the budget, correct?
The surety basically, Councilman Miranda, is a bond that the prime contractor has to put up with the project. So if for some reason they do not complete the project or they fail to complete the project, the surety steps in and they would find another contractor to complete the project, or we would be able to cash that bond in.
Let me ask this then, if I may. So then, when we rank the contracts according to the best price available and the timetable and everything, do we ever include who the surety company is to make sure that they have the work to do to cover the bond?
I'm going to ask Mr. Beals, he can address that. I believe, this is in the area of construction, so he can probably address that better than I can.
Brad Baird, Deputy Administrator of Infrastructure. Councilman Miranda, could you repeat that question for me, please?
Well, I hope I can remember it. But what I think it is, when we look at the applications that come in for business or whatever,
right,
and they bid on something, do we just take the company's past performance or performance somewhere else into security area, that they're the ones that are the best, the lowest possible bid and the best to do the job? Or do we in any way include the surety company, make sure they're big enough to handle the claim in case something happens?
And I'll interrupt briefly, but I believe that we require that as part of our bid package, that the surety companies meet certain financial thresholds, and so we won't take any company per se.
Do we verify all that?
I believe so, but I'll let Mr. Beard
Yes,
finish.
isn't it? In the contract review, that is my understanding, that there are minimum requirements that the surety has to meet, and that is part of the bid package review that is done.
And the reason I asked, and I don't know where we're at, but we've had some problems. North of Waters Avenue, we had some problems in certain areas of the south part of Tampa, and I just want to make sure that that surety company is capable of handling what's there.
Yes, sir. Just an update on that. It looks like the surety has come to terms on that project with a contractor, and so we are real close to getting that work done.
I appreciate it because we're
Yes.
getting a lot of phone calls and emails on it. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
we are.
Mr. Massey, did you want to add something?
No, not really. I just know from my own experience in the city attorney's office, I know others that have dealt with surety bonds, they're not the easiest thing. You're getting a third party involved, even if they're financially and fiscally responsible, because you're getting another third party involved in doing the work. It just makes it longer, and it's difficult to get through all those issues.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can sleep tonight.
Mr. Barrett, are you here for agenda item number 3, file number PW 22-76143?
I am. Brad Baird again, Deputy Administrator of Infrastructure. I have written a memo on this item. It is a resolution authorizing an agreement with Westford Construction Corporation for water line replacement in the amount of $4.2 million, and I'll answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Barrett?
Part of the PIPES program?
It is part of the PIPES program.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson, Goods,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Carlson being absent.
Mr. Chair?
Councilman Goods?
Mr. Barrett, 3 is the information I asked about in reference to, we talked about no civil engineers being available for these type of projects. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
I just want to put that out there to the public. Now, when you have these numbers and they don't see those numbers pop up, the reason why we don't have that. So I'm going to make sure I can reach out to some of these associations to find out why we don't have any civil engineers applying for some of these jobs that we have. I think that's crucial.
I do very much appreciate that.
You're also here for item agenda number 4, file number PW 22-76150.
Yes, sir, and I have written a memo on that, and that is an amendment to an agreement for design services in the amount of $5.6 million with PCL Construction for the Bayshore Pumping Station rehabilitation. And I will stop there and answer any questions that you have.
I think the numbers were 8% on that?
This one was 18.2%.
Okay, 18.
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote, please.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson, Goods,
Yes.
Vieira, Maniscalco,
Yes.
and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried with Carlson being absent and Vieira being absent at vote.
Thank you.
Item agenda number 5, file number E 2021-8, chapter 18. We have a written report. There you are.
Sir, Captain Patrick Messmer, Tampa Police Professional Standards. Yes, we did prepare a written report on this. I understood the council may have some questions about it as well.
Is there any questions? Any comments? Councilwoman Hurtak.
The previous memo stated that the cameras can't be turned off. Is that true?
That they cannot be turned off?
Yes. In the memo, it says that they aren't turned off.
Well, they can always be turned off. Our policy does not allow them to be turned off.
But they can be silenced, correct?
Correct.
So, is there any data on how often they're silenced?
No, the system does not keep any kind of records as far as how often that feature is used. We do a quality assurance report every month. Our supervisors review cameras. We have a quality assurance unit that also reviews videos on a random basis to make sure that nothing's being done in violation of policy. But there's no metrics in the system for when that mute feature is used and when it's not used.
That's very concerning. If we have something that can be used by anyone, I mean, we should be able to track those metrics. So I would ask if you could ask the company what types of ways we could follow that data. Because if we're allowing people to silence them, we should know when that's happening.
Okay, I can reach out to Axon and see if they have any plans.
I would love a report back on that. So my other questions go to this, and have officers been disciplined for silencing their cameras and forgetting to turn them back on? But we don't know that because we don't know when they're silenced.
Well, we know when they're silenced once we review the videos. We don't have any complaints this year that have come in, and we have tried to find video, and it's either not there or the video's been silenced. So that has not been an issue. Now, back when the program was new in 2020 and into 2021, we had some instances where officers did not turn their cameras on, and they received discipline for that. But as far as this year, and especially since the policy was changed, we've had no instances where we have been able to find that any camera was either deactivated or silenced in violation of policy, and it's led to a questionable, account that somebody's called a complainant on.
Okay, and again, everyone may be using it correctly, but I just think that we should be able to get those metrics so that we all know.
Okay. Yeah, I can reach out to Axon and see if they have any plans on including that. They're a nationwide company. They have thousands of clients. They're probably not going to change their entire software program because we make a request, but I will make that request of them.
I would have to imagine other places are requesting it as well. So I appreciate any feedback on that. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, yeah. Actually, if you could bring it back, how about a month? How's that?
Okay.
How about
Oh, that's
September 15th?
Well, that's that busy day, right? Or is that evening?
Oh, no, that was September 1st, wasn't it?
No, it was 15th.
I think August 25th is the date.
25th of August.
Oh,
is the busy day.
sorry. Then yes. How about September 1st?
Time?
That would be under
Staff reports?
reports.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was that your motion?
Yes.
A motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Feely?
Chairman, Abby Feely, Deputy Administrator, Development and Growth Management. I was supposed to give a brief update under staff reports on the consolidated action plan that you all approved and were transmitting to HUD. So I wanted to see if I might be able to do that now before Ms. Travis comes up, or I can wait. I also have an item before you tonight at 5 o'clock, so I could bring it back then. It's completely up to you.
Ms. Feely, you're standing at the podium now.
Thank you. Again, Abby Feely, I just wanted to give a brief update, and I have a quick presentation on the consolidated action plan. The consolidated plan and the annual action plan. Housing and Community Development has been coming before you since June on this. This is where we showed you the funds we're gonna get for the year, who applied through the RFP process for those allocations, what programs were gonna go ahead and be funded. And then the last time we were here, we told you we were about to head out on having 7 community meetings across the community to hear other concerns on housing. So if I'll just quickly go through this. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as you know, the city works on a 5-year consolidated plan, and then each year we bring you our annual action plan. We're required to do this from HUD. These are all federal entitlements that we're talking about today. So this is no general fund, this is no state funds. These are all federal funds. Next slide, please. Right here we show you, and it's a little bit hard with the scroll, but right here we show you that those first 4 funds are our federal funds, the CDBG, Home, HOPWA, and ESG, and then the SHIP funds are the state funds that come to us also, but we wanted to give you that full picture. So there's 13.8 million in this year's action plan in grant funds. Also, some of these, again, are on 3-year cycles. So you're seeing just this portion that will be in fiscal year 23 and what is our program year 22.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, is this an add-on, or I don't have this on?
This is an add-on.
This is just a quick update. You've seen all this. You actually
Just an
already
update.
approved it. I'm just working to continue that dialogue that we've set up, that we want to make sure you know now. This is all set to go, and it is going to be transmitted to HUD next week. So I wanted to give you an update on the public meetings and citizen participation as well. But this has come to before you. It had 2 public hearings already with Ms. Henderson and myself. The proposed programs, if you go back, please, next slide. The proposed programs that will be funded this year included 4 of the public service agencies, 2 under public facilities, 2 housing counseling agencies, homeless services, our HOPWA, which is the HIV and AIDS. Again, we do that for the 4 surrounding counties as well as ourselves, and then permanent housing services. That's a total of 7.7 million. Now I showed you 13 million. We keep back some of that money to do our owner-occupied rehab and our down payment assistance program in the amount of 2 million. So, and then we have some that is currently not allocated to programs. Next slide, please. We did have a 30-day public record period. We received 35 surveys in that. We consolidated those responses, and there was nothing in conflict with what we had proposed. Next slide, please. And this just again is the schedule of the action plan and how it's come before you. We have been here a few times. We like to track for you. It was approved on consent on July 14th, and I think it was approved, and now we will be transmitting it to HUD for the August 15th deadline. And then it is our goal in the next 30 to 45 days to bring to you the agreements that will be allocating these funds to the recipients and get those. So that'll be the next step. You'll see this. Sometimes we had been coming to you over the years and we talk through all these plans and we see things and then don't, and we just want to continue to keep that dialogue going with you. So I did want to give you an update on that today. The next slide just shows you the meetings that were held, where they were held, the times, and the dates, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Feely? Ms. Feely, can you make sure that each council member has a copy of this?
It was in Sire, but
Can
we
you
can send
please
it
make
via
sure that we
email
get a
as well.
copy of it,
Yes,
please?
absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Feely.
Thank you.
File number CM 21-71-56-2, agenda item number 8.
That would be me. Good afternoon, Council. Nicole Travis, Administrator of Development and Economic Opportunity. I am here before you to talk about the Tenant Advocacy Office that you requested us to, staff to come back with and draft ordinance. And as I shared with you in your briefings that you don't need an ordinance to move forward with this office, we believe that an ordinance would be a little more restrictive than the flexibility that we need for our changing market and to be more responsive to the needs of our residents. I have a brief presentation for you. Thank you very much. So about 7 weeks ago, we stood up our housing hotline, just trying to, we were hearing a lot of comments through public comments on where to get services, eviction notices, rental assistance. And so when we stood up that housing hotline, that really gave us the information that we needed to try to shape this, what I'm calling a tenant services team, instead of just advocacy. We were shooting in the dark initially, but this really gave us the data that we needed. You can see that 44% of the calls that we received within a 6-week period, I don't have last week's data as yet, but the 6 weeks, 44% of those calls were for rental assistance. And then we had about 19% calls that were outside city limits, whether they're homeless or they were looking for mortgage assistance. 16.7%, much like what you heard this morning, is the availability of housing is a problem. We've received calls on trying to help find units. Finding affordable homes to purchase was about 7.3%. And then I'm going to talk briefly about the last 3 items, which was eviction, rent increase complaints, and landlord complaints. So in setting up the tenant services team, what we've done is, much like we have a housing community development team, we have a homeless team, we're setting up a tenant services team, hiring 2 full-time community development specialists. They will direct individuals to services. So the city of Tampa is not the only service provider as far as rental assistance or other support services. We may direct them to our nonprofit partners and other programs. We will start, you heard this morning that community engagement will have a dedicated person here to receive complaints or anything to direct them to the appropriate department if they have complaints. But we also have heard a lot about the quality of the units, and so we will have a dedicated, we're working with code enforcement to have dedicated staff at council meetings starting on October 25th, so that we could take the information. If someone is complaining about the quality of their home, we can take that information. Sometimes they're outside of city limits, but we could take that right now and then dispatch code enforcement real time once we hear those comments. And then we're launching a pilot program with Bay Area Legal Services. Again, one of the most of the complaints that you've heard through public comment in the recent weeks was legal service, access to legal service. And so while everyone has the right to legal counsel, the ask is really for the city to pay for that. And our city attorney's office cannot represent a private entity because the city of Tampa is the client. So our city attorney has worked really hard with Bay Area Legal Services to create a pilot program so we can see how this works. And we will do, the tenant services team will do the pre-screening for those legal services. And so as a part of looking at the data that we aggregated from the the housing hotline, eviction calls about eviction was about 10.3% of those calls. These rent increase in complaint, landlord complaints, these are calls that we would refer to for legal services. And so again, we've been working with Bay Area Legal to put together a program that we would be able to screen those calls, direct the tenants to Bay Area Legal Services. We will start with the screening. They have existing landlord tenant staff attorneys. I do have to tell you, much like everyone else, there are staffing shortages. It's just sheer volume they're behind, but they are committed to trying this pilot program with us. There are income limits for Bay Area Legal up to equal to or less than 200% of the federal poverty guidelines. And then the tenant services team will do the initiate the screening. And the way that we have structured the payment of those services are in 3 categories. So a tenant may need consultation, we'll have a flat fee for that. If the tenant wants to represent themselves in a legal matter and they have questions or about forms or help with negotiations and doing it pro se, there's a flat fee for that. And if there has to be appearance by the attorney in a court case, there's another fee for that. And so again, the housing hotline, I have the number on the top of the screen. Rental assistance is the number one. It's the bulk of, it's all that you've been hearing in public comment. It's what you heard this morning. And we know that from the 3,500 applications that we are constantly trying to work through. And so I didn't want to leave that unmentioned, but we are staffing up through temp employees, through overtime, with City of Tampa employees to work through that backlog. We have started to work through that number. You'll see when I give you the next rental move-in assistance program numbers. Initially, at one point, you saw that the average was about 13,000 per door. That has gone down to about 7,800. And what has happened is Some people moved outside the city limits. Some people no longer leave services. They've moved elsewhere, don't need assistance anymore. So the numbers are fluid and we'll continue to report on, but we are working through that list. And I just want to take a moment to thank Murray Holmes, Kayon Henderson, Abby Feely, and the employees that have stepped up and worked overtime and through this emergency crisis to work through the housing hotline. I have to tell you that it's not lost on us, the comments that we hear at council. I listened to every comment this morning. I usually sit in chambers and you see me sit through the comments. And for staff, it's not lost on us that there is a need. People are struggling, people are hurting. And for our staff to work overtime or to shift from their daily duties to help us work through this backlog, it has been emotionally hard for them and for the team. So I'm getting a little, because it's hard. It's hard listening and just like you, sitting there and feeling helpless and can't get the help fast enough. So I just really want to take the time to thank those employees and the leadership team that has worked through this. And I think that's my last slide. So I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Chairman?
Councilman Good.
You can tell the passion in your voice. You were just talking that in the end of your sentence there. And we believe that staff feels for these folks, these citizens, our constituents. And we have to do something. Yeah, I heard from the rental associations, these people today, and but I look for solutions. I don't look for all this talk, excuses. I'm a solutionary person. And I look at all these buildings that are being built in the city. And the guy talked about the vacancies. Well, hell, if there's vacancies and we got people that need places to stay, we need to be filling them up. So how do your staff, or how do we work with these folks to say, well, what can we do, not what we can't do? If you have vacancies, how can we put people in places so they can live? So I know it's a challenge, but I'm just hoping that we can come up with some kind of answers to talk to these folks about it.
Sure. So I'm going to get a little economic. A healthy vacancy rate where there is supply in the marketplace where people can easily find rental units. It's usually about 7% to 8%, and we're way under that. So there's a shortage on the demand, which is you going into my next presentation, Councilman Boots. But I agree with you that there is a vacancy rate, but a 5% vacancy rate or lower is not that many. And so it might be hard. And so I took notes on that and I heard those comments. And so we'll reach out and see, is there anything prohibiting them from, or are there hurdles? Why aren't they putting people, are they being more selective? Are they screening? I don't know. But there's questions to be asked and we will follow up. So we hear the comments and then we go back and we start asking questions and we try to find solutions. Much like what we presented to you with the tenant services team. The mayor agrees with you. You guys said you wanted a tenant advocacy office. We realize that our residents that are tenant, which is almost half of our households are renters in Tampa. And so we know that we need to provide more access to that. And so this is why we presented the tenant services team and the broad services that and not having it codified in the ordinance, I just want to reiterate, that allows us the flexibility to continue to add and shift based on whatever the market is. We starting with 2 employees. I told you that we're staffing up to work through the backlog through temps. We're working on this, and this also allows that team to also work closely with our housing and community development team.
Well, thank you for that, because I'm gonna be honest with you, most people aren't ready to be homeowners.
Yeah. Right.
Most people are not ready to be homeowners. It takes a lot to maintain a home.
Well, you guys talked about it this morning, right?
It takes a lot to maintain a home.
Right?
Right, it takes a lot to maintain a home. So if you got yard work, you got fencing, you have a roof repair, or something breaks inside that house, you gotta take that money to fix this and that. And some people have a set level of pay where they can pay their rent and few bills and get a little something to eat, and maybe a daycare if they make it a little bit of change. But vast majority can't handle a home unless they're making a decent pay. So I'm glad we're looking at those things, because we got to look at how we need to build, or how we can be able look at changing zoning, changing some rules, and be able to find a way to meet with these folks to say, what incentives can we get to build, you know, I don't want people to say about low income house, no, just a nice
Housing,
place.
just housing.
Housing.
Yeah.
Just build housing.
And I think Ms. Lockett was the one that mentioned it earlier in the comments, in public comments, that it's not a housing crisis for poor people. It's not a housing crisis, you know, for a particular demographic. It's a housing crisis for everyone and across the country. But what happens oftentimes is that people of color and the poorest people in our community are the ones that are hardest hit. And so we are looking at this not just from from the technical definition of affordable housing, but housing affordability, so that people are not cost burdened with rent and mortgages. So look like we were doing some economic classes together, because you're like taking my next presentation from me, so.
Always thinking about the people. You know?
Always.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Well, I'm proud of the progress that Tampa's making, adding these temp employees, and I'm especially happy to hear about the relationship with Bay Area Legal, as those attorneys now know that their work is backed with the full faith and credit of the city. I mean, we are paying for those
Yes.
services, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, ma'am.
The name, too, I believe, reflects what city government's responsibility is to its citizens. It's service, not advocacy, and I really appreciate that. How does this office plan to make the availability of these services known to renters in the city of Tampa?
Good, thank you for asking that. We work closely, so unlike any other municipality that I've worked for, this is the third municipality that I've worked for. We have our own PIOs in our portfolios, and so Natalia Verdina she was on our briefings. She's also on all of my staff calls to understand what's happening in housing. She's the one that helps us get the word out through marketing, and also working with our community advocates to make sure that there's the information is getting to the people that need help. So we're going to use our communications person within my portfolio to help get the word out. Not only that, working with community leaders and community advocates, Ms. Lockett and I are working together to bring services to, well, really it talks about tenants, but services at Seminole Heights Library. We have 2 meetings that's coming up, and because you asked me that, I'm not gonna have the dates, but I'm sure she does. August 10th is the first one from 5:30 to 7:30. We're gonna have code enforcement, human rights office, housing, TPD, parks and recreation, all there, just to be able to answer questions and also to explain what kind of services that the city has to provide to seniors, to renters. So we're just trying to make ourselves available and continue to share what services the city can provide. And we want to help. We are, like, this is not big city government. Like, we want our citizens to feel comfortable in calling us if there is a challenge, if they have a solution, if they need help navigating a system. We want to do that. So we'll continue to do community meetings and public outreach.
And these temp employees, from my understanding about our previous conversation, are going to be reaching out to those 3,500
Yes.
applications that are waiting.
Yes.
Just as a guesstimate, how long do you think that will take to reach and impact all of those?
Okay, so labor is hard, but we think if we can get staffed up even with 10 dedicated, we think we can do it within 45 days. And so we're already working through, T&I have been great working with us to use it to aggregate the information that we've already received, send out messages to everyone saying, hey, we're contacting you, update your address, update your contact information. And so we've been doing that. Some people don't live in the city anymore, so people are coming up. So we're actively doing that now, but if we get 10 to 12, our goal is 12, we really believe that we could get through this in 45 days.
Will there be a system of case numbers so tenants seeking assistance can be connected with the same manager, so to speak, each time? I mean, I know you're doing a lot of data collection, so is that part of it?
Yes, because every time there's intake, we take a certain number of information, they're assigned a number, so yes. And so I was just thinking of systems and how to aggregate the data, but we are collecting it, and yes, they'll have a case number. And they'll be able to know who they spoke to, And that's a part of what we do when this is housing and community development. This is a relational business. Like, you're not just calling somebody cold on the other side. We want to develop relationships with our citizens and our residents so that they can call back and speak to the same person. They'll know that I'm invested in their success and their well-being and their quality of life. And the person that's on the other end of the call is doing that. So yes, ma'am.
And I have one more, I have a request that you come back to this council every 2 months with updates on progress. And, also want a SWOT analysis. This goes back to my, aid days, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So I don't just want an update, I want how things are going.
How's it working?
What areas can we look to change? Because if what you're asking for is not to have an ordinance, and that this is gonna be fluid, this council wants to be a part of that fluidity, and we wanna
100%.
see how nimble we can make government.
100%.
Not only that, I am absolutely willing, and volunteering to do a shift. And I've actually heard members in the community that might be willing to do it. But yeah, I'm happy to answer some phone calls and do what I can. So please reach out. I would love to be able to do that, and I think several of our council members might join me. But also, just wanted to put this back out again. The phone number to call, please use this. So thank you for that.
Let's give the phone number.
Oh, sorry. Yes, 813-307-5555. Yeah, and
I'm going to go to Councilman Maniscalco first.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I know I did ask for an ordinance the next day this announcement was made, I believe. However, Councilwoman Hurtak did make a motion here that a report come back every 2 months. I know that an ordinance is more restrictive in the sense that it would say 2 people would staff this. Now you're saying that doing it this way, we have the ability to expand it to 10, to 12, to 5, to 20, whatever we need without coming back to council to amend the ordinance and whatever. I don't care, as long as it gets done, whether we do it by ordinance, I just want it done. People need help today. As far as I know, this is already active, correct?
Yes,
From when the announcement was made.
That's correct.
And people can get help already.
Right now.
Right now, they call, starting at 4 p.m., 307-5555. They can get to the services that they need. At the end of the day, I just want to do the right thing. I don't, like I said earlier, I don't want to offer false hope to anybody. I know that we are restricted in what we can do and whatnot. So it's not called the Tenant Advocacy Office. It has its own Tampa Tenant Services team. However, it reaches the same or similar goal. It's able to help people. That's all I care about, is that people that have come here, people that have requested, people that are in need have the services available to them within the city of Tampa. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for pointing out the 4 to 7 p.m. That time we were doing from 11 to 7, and what we saw with that, the data as we had the call center, the bulk of our calls were coming in between 4 and 7 p.m. This is when people are getting off in the evening, and so that's why we switched our time and resources really to capture the volume of when the calls are coming in.
So if somebody asks me, I can tell them we have our own tenant advocacy office named the TTST.
That's
Tampa
correct.
Tenant Services Team.
Everything that you've
exists
asked
now.
for.
We were inspired by Miami-Dade. We were inspired by all the people that came here, and we have our own office with, as was mentioned this morning in the budget presentation, $400,000 budget. But as it's structured, if we need more money, if we need to hire more people, you can do that freely without the restriction of a vote or an amendment of all that stuff.
And the services that I've outlined to you, we're starting now. The only thing that we haven't started yet is the Bay Area Legal Services. I'll have to bring that contract back to you to approve. But we're working.
And when you come back with that, I saw fees per those 3 services that were mentioned. Will you come back with the amount that people will be charged for, appearance in court and whatnot?
It's going to be flat fees, and I believe that the agreement will include those rates.
So we will be able to see that before we approve the agreement?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Whatever we negotiate, I'll bring it back to you. It'll be on the contract.
I'm just gonna go to
Clarification.
Councilman Maniscalco. Is your question
Yeah,
relevant to right now?
yeah.
Right now,
So-
please.
You said flat fees that people have to pay, but I thought the
No.
city was paying.
The city is paying for it. It's flat fees that we are paying
Okay,
the
okay,
city.
so it's
Okay.
not going to the consumer.
No,
The
no,
city
no.
is basically
The-
engaging Bay Area Legal Services to help.
So
Yes.
it's free to
It
city
is
residents?
free
Okay.
if you, meeting the requirements, remember we have to do the pre-screening, you meet the requirements. The individual that's seeking the service will not pay anything. That flat fee is paid for by the city, which is why we're engaging in contract with Bay Area Legal Services.
Okay.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure you're giving consideration to when you're looking for housing and so forth and so on. Do you have a specific plan about where the employments may be, if there's employment opportunities, number one? Number two, about transportation to get to and from? And number three, where's the necessities available for them to buy groceries and so forth within a set limit? Because I remember 26th Avenue and 20th Street, there was no big department stores there. There was no big nothing there. And someone in that family had to walk 3 or 4 miles to come back with 2 bags of food.
So wearing my planning and urban design hat, everything that we do in my portfolio, we're thinking on quality of life
Okay.
issues, and that includes mobility, that includes access to food, and a lot of, there are certain pockets of our city that are food deserts, and so how can we partner with developers, private investors, entrepreneurs to meet these needs, whether it's a bodega, whether it's an actual grocery store. We are trying to meet those needs holistically, access to schools, all of it.
I understand. I appreciate it very much. I just want to make sure for the
Yes,
record.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair?
I was just asking if you were on. I don't see your face. There you go. Questions?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. May I, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Thank you, sir. No, thank you very much for that presentation. This is, part of a series of building blocks that we're having on this very, very important issue, so that people in the city of Tampa can know that we stand with them, that we're going to be ready to back their dignity. And that's what it all comes down to, which is human dignity, that when we talk about places like Silver Oaks, Timber Falls, and different places, and we see some of the living conditions there in our Tampa, that they collide with human dignity and what we expect to be there for people, and we have to have a voice on that issue. I'm glad to see the additional investments too in council. That's very, very important. We could also talk to the Hillsborough County Bar Association about getting pro bono attorneys additionally on this issue. But the biggest thing is to make sure that people know that there are resources and that help is available. When you take a look at the issue that happened at Timber Falls, I remember talking with a nice woman that had called me on it. And I said that if you didn't have my cell number, this may have never gotten out, right? So people have got to know that their local government is not only on their side, but how to retrieve their services so that we can put the proper weight of our local government on behalf of people whose dignity is being undermined. So I obviously support this, and I thank you for your work in it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I then move the resolution? I don't see a resolution on the agenda, but is there a resolution for this?
There is no
So
resolution
it's
for
already
this,
done.
but you have the motion that you,
Yes,
sorry.
I was going to make sure that there was, since
I
there
was
is
doing
no
your
ordinance,
job.
whether there was going to be a resolution or not. You defined that. Thank you very much. Motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Let's do a roll call vote.
Carlson, Goods,
I want to be clear, we're doing a policy, what we're saying?
I'm sorry.
It's going to be a policy, based on what we're saying?
I think the motion on the floor is that she will report back
Report
every
back.
2 months
In 2 months.
on the status
Yes.
of the program.
Yes.
so before we do the roll call, I just want to get a clear date. 2 months from now, we're going with October 6th.
Yes.
Okay. Carlson, Goods,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes,
Motion carried unanimously with Carlson being absent.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Travis. You're going to take agenda item number 9, CM 22-75892. Nope.
Good afternoon, Council. Megan Newcomb, Assistant City Attorney. I did draft and provide a memorandum last week for your review, and it had a draft resolution. I've updated the draft resolution, and I believe Mr. Massey has provided copies to you all at your seats. And the updated resolution contains some additional language that after meeting with Councilmember Hurtak, I was able to adopt into the resolution as requested to review the GRACE Act that was proposed by the City of Austin, Texas, review that language and determine what language, if any, we could adopt that would be consistent with both state and local law, as well as consistent with the policy of the City Council. And I'm happy to answer any questions of any council members.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I would also direct my fellow council members, I passed out a different resolution this morning that looks a little like this. I gave this to legal too. And where I differ with council on this, or I'm sorry, with legal on this is there's a provision in section 2 that says except as may be required by state or federal law. And for more than 50 years, we have been confronted with state legislatures passing laws that were not consistent with the federal or state law of the land. Mississippi's abortion ban that was upheld by the Dobbs decision was in violation of federal law until the Supreme Court reinterpreted that law. In this very state, legislators in Tallahassee have passed dozens of laws that courts found to be unconstitutional. From school vouchers to voter suppression acts to the death penalty statute to parental consent, Florida has passed laws that were declared unconstitutional until after years of effort, they found a friendly court. To this day, Florida statute chapter 256 bans burning the Confederate flag, a law that has been unconstitutional since 1989. And multiple members of the current United States Supreme Court have suggested the right to an attorney, which arose from the overturning of Florida law in Gideon versus Wainwright, is next. Tallahassee has repeatedly chipped away at our municipal autonomy. We cannot cede or surrender our rights any further, especially on the topic at hand, which Tampa residents and those across the country, most recently in Kansas, have made clear that they oppose government interference in. These decades of asymmetric legislating must end. To restrict the boundaries of this resolution to those dedicated by the state makes us once again followers. In the interest of showing leadership, it is our responsibility to lead. As far as the crisis pregnancy centers that were in section 3 in the resolution that I passed out, it is the third, be it further resolved. We will furthermore not be compelled to spend taxpayer dollars on these so-called services that obscure their true mission and aim to deceive those seeking medical care protected by Florida's Constitution. And the last, be it further resolved, that was taken out that I suggest stay in, regarding restricting expenditures, nor will we be coerced out of electing how not to spend our tax dollars. The fear of investigation or prosecution in other states has already led doctors to avoid providing life-saving care and putting women at the risk of dying. On July 29th, from Slate Magazine, quote, Dr. Jessamine Munoz, a Texas OBGYN, could not provide an abortion to a woman in the midst of a miscarriage with a womb infection. The fetal heartbeat had not yet stopped, so he waited until she lost multiple liters of blood to terminate. By that point, she had developed major complications that required surgery and had been put on a breathing machine. It's why another Texas patient undergoing a miscarriage could not terminate until she was bleeding out. It's why at least 28 other Texas patients experiencing a failed pregnancy were denied an abortion, a majority of whom then had serious infections and bleeding. It's why yet more Texas patients were forced to suffer through sepsis and hemorrhage before doctors would terminate their doomed pregnancies, unquote. We are obligated to eliminate this ambiguity with strong commitment that medical professionals will not be investigated or prosecuted in this city for providing medical care. So those are my only objections to the city's language.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Councilman Vera.
Thank you. I don't have this with me because I'm in my office.
I'll get it to you.
Hang on, it's coming to you right now.
Thank you, Councilman Maniscalco. I'll meet you in the hall. So I will come late to this, but I'll take a look at this. Oh, thank you. Look.
And Chairman, if I may, just to make it a little bit easier for all the
Please.
council members, the city's proposed resolution and the proposed resolution referred to by Councilmember Hurtak that was provided, the differences really are on page 2 of 3 on the resolution provided by the Democratic Socialists of America. That's Councilwoman Hurtak's, where it says, "Be it further resolved." So prior to that, the language is identical in the city's proposed resolution and this proposed resolution. So I believe where it first says, "Be it further resolved," that's the paragraph where the city resolution would insert the language, "except as may be required by state or federal law." And then skipping over the next, "Be it further resolved," going to the last one on that page where it says, "The City Council of the City of Tampa will not approve the appropriation of funds for any organization or entity operating crisis pregnancy center." That one is not included. And then the last paragraph on the top of my copy, the top of page 3. So those are the only portions that I think are inconsistent. And please correct me if I'm wrong, council member.
No, that is exactly right, and those are the 3 portions that I just spoke to.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Councilman Vera.
Yes, sir. Let me ask something, and I want to say when Councilwoman Hurtak made this motion, after some silence, I was glad to second it. And so I have nothing against the intent of this, but let me ask a question, if I may, to look at this, because again, I just want to make sure I know what I'm voting for, et cetera, and I don't know how much, if legal's gotten a chance to look at this, et cetera. May we have an extra week on this? Would that be, would you be amenable to that, ma'am?
This actually was sent out yesterday.
Yeah.
By email. And this, I've been working with city staff and the community on this all week. So we've gone back and forth, and this is where we've landed. And this was also provided, I believe, by the city yesterday, or did you just provide it to me?
I think I just provided it to you.
Okay.
It was after 5 yesterday. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I would really prefer to vote on it today, unless other council members are willing to wait.
I'd rather wait. I'm in agreement with the Councilman Vieira to digest it and go through everything.
So did you all actually receive this email and read it then? And okay.
No.
We're not here next week, right?
Yeah, we're not here until the 18th.
We're not here.
So I'm if someone else makes that motion, but I will not.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes, Councilman Vera.
Thank you. And again, I'm just trying to, I just got this. And I mean, if we could just again, have time. I was glad again to second this motion, and I was glad to do that, like I said, but I would just ask that at the very next meeting, item number 1, whatever it is, that would be my respectful request for this, because I need time to see what exactly is being requested of us, and if there's an objection from legal, I just want to talk with them. It's a respectful motion, and I would like to see how other council members feel about that. And again, I say that having seconded the original motion and have been glad to do so in that regard.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Chairman. This is going kind of quick. I got this, I got the other one, but I didn't get them within time to read, compare one and the other one. I have to look at both of them, see what's right and wrong. But I'm gonna tell you a little story that maybe I shouldn't say, but I will. Some 50-some years ago, through family, I experienced this. You see, my wife was pregnant, and her doctor was a very reputable doctor, great guy, and I'll tell you his name was John Flynn. And he finally examined the wife, and everything was going fine. Up to about the 5th month, he said, I got bad news. The fetus is dead. So we set the appointment to go to a hospital and have the baby removed. However, when she went into the hospital, they wouldn't do the abortion. Call it whatever you want to call it. Because about another fetus that was 3 months old. So she had to wait, not to me, she's the one that did it, had to wait for the dead fetus bacteria to kill the other fetus who was 3 months old. And if you think it was bad on me, you can imagine how it was on her. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I also just want to point out this is a resolution, not an ordinance.
Councilman Goods.
Councilwoman, I think most of the gentlemen on this dais will support your motion. I think because we're just getting the city's portion right now, it hasn't been digested. And then you brought up some points that you were concerned about that they did not include or didn't include in your original memorandum, you had original resolution you wanted them to have. So I think just being fair to some of the council members, it may be best that way we have both documents, and now we can compare what you actually want in there, and now we can go back and ask Ms. Newcomb, who's helping craft this with you, those questions to make sure of what you want, because it's your resolution, you're very passionate about this, I understand that. So definitely for my support, just if you would just, give a little deference and let us come back, and I'm sure that you would get a 7-0 vote on this.
I'm not sure of anything.
I'm pretty positive you probably would get what you need. This is a serious, sensitive subject today, every day, and I just believe this council here is very compassionate to issues like this, and I think to be able to make it really move the way you want it move, if you just be humble and give it a week, I think we can get it done. But again, it's your motion.
Again, I'm willing for others to make the motion, but
I'm looking for a date to continue it to. You have CRA on the 18th, that's not gonna work. You have 16th, special call budget workshop, so it would have to be the evening session of August 18th. If not, it would go to August 25th, which is a regular daytime session. Those are the closest dates.
That's correct.
May I, Mr. Chair?
Councilman Vieira.
Yes, sir. I heard Councilman Escalco talk about a budget. Can we consider it at that time just to expedite it? Because again, I think council members just
That's
literally
special call
probably.
meeting.
The 16th is a special call workshop, so I don't believe that it could be considered then. There is an evening meeting of city council for zoning on the 18th. That's your next meeting where you could potentially hear
First
this.
item of agenda on August 18th.
Move to put this on the 5:01 PM, August 18th, item number 1 on the agenda.
I'll second.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. Roll call vote.
Goode,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
No.
Carlson, and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried with Hurtak voting no and Carlson being absent.
August 18th.
Sorry. Agenda item number 10, file number CM 2276272.
Did you already get?
I think they're waiting for you.
Good afternoon, Rebecca Johns, Assistant City Attorney. I believe Mr. Massey has distributed the proposed rent stabilization ordinance that we were asked to prepare. I realize that you're just seeing it now after 6 days of focusing on just this. We finished it last night. So I will walk you through the ordinance since you are not familiar with it. And I always get this upside down, so let's see.
If we could go to the Elmo, please.
Okay. So the ordinance provides that a landlord cannot increase rent on a residential rental unit more than once a year. It also provides that a landlord cannot increase the rent by more than the increase in the CPI as compared to the same month the prior year. So you would look at, right now, August of July of 2022 versus July of 2021, and so on. So you would look at it for the prior year. We have defined a residential rental unit as a unit in a multifamily structure of 4 or more dwelling units that are rented for residential use. A residential rental unit does not include, and these are the exceptions from the Florida statute, rental units used or offered for residential purposes as a seasonal or tourist unit pursuant to section 166.043.4 Florida statutes. That includes units located in a hotel, motel, or other similar establishment where units are rented primarily to transient guests. A rental unit does not include rental units used or offered for residential purposes as a second housing unit, also pursuant to section 166.043.4. Rental units located in a luxury apartment building pursuant to section 146.043.4, which for the purposes of the ordinance means one wherein on January 1st, 1977, the aggregate rent due on a monthly basis from all dwelling units as stated in leases or rent lists existing on that date was $250 a month. That is directly from the Florida statute. Dwelling units located in a single-family home, townhome, condominium, or mobile home, and mobile home lots, mobile home lot rents as preempted by Chapter 723. Rental units that a government agency or authority owns, operates, or otherwise manages. I'm just moving this up. Dwelling units located in a cooperative apartment occupied by a holder of a proprietary lease. Dwelling units located in a disability facility, hospital, nursing home, assisted care community, or other health care facility licensed under certain chapters of Florida statutes. Rental units for which the landlord receives federal, state, or local housing subsidies. Rental units that are currently under rent control by virtue of local, state, or federal housing subsidy, and new rental units that have received a certificate of occupancy on or after the date of this ordinance. We have also built a process for an exception into the ordinance. We have looked at what other jurisdictions have done, and in order to increase the to make this more legally defensive, we have added in some exceptions where a landlord has the ability to apply for the exception. It comes to city council, you will hear it at a public hearing, and then you would decide. Those exceptions are, or the following factors will come into play to decide if the landlord has an exception due to its inability to receive a fair and reasonable return on its investment. So when the application is made, the factors that you would consider are changes in property taxes, unavoidable increases in maintenance and operating expenses, the cost of planned or completed capital improvements, increases or decreases in the number of tenants occupying the unit, substantial deterioration of the rental unit other than normal wear and tear, the inability of the landlord to provide adequate housing services or otherwise substantially comply with law, and the pattern of recent rent increases or decreases. The exception will not be granted if the unit is not in compliance with law. So based on what we've heard from you, it's my understanding that the main concern is the landlords that come in and are raising the rent for no reason. Those landlords would not fall into one of these exceptions. They would have to prove that based on these factors, they're not getting the fair and reasonable return on their investment.
If I may, I don't like to cut short anybody, staff who's giving a report or something. I like to hear it to the end. However, what you've just shown on the Elmo is the same thing that people that were in here that were landlords were saying, that the reasons why they're having to increase their rents were the same thing you listed just now.
Probably, yes. I mean, their arguments were based on the fact that
That
they have
insurance
these
has gone up,
expenses.
that the products that they have to use for maintenance and upkeep went up, that water bills went up, that things went up. They were all saying these things you just listed.
And we built this in because when we looked around the country, most of the rent stabilization ordinances, which granted there aren't many, but most of them did include these exceptions. Because what that does is, again, make it a little more legally defensible when it's challenged in a court of law.
Question?
Yes, thank you very much for that.
I'm
Councilman Goods.
glad you listed the exception. And the reason I say that because property taxes have gone up, insurance has gone up. So of course, there's an offset somewhere. The problem that people are facing is they're raising your rent 4 and 5 times. That's the issue right now.
I'm not,
Right.
Councilman Goods, please don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
She just listed all these things.
Right.
That people will be coming in here now and filling up this room each and every month. And I understand that rents have gone up, but if someone has a lease, why are they going up 3 or 4 times in 1 year?
That's happening now. That's happening now.
And I understand you.
It was just a question. I'm not an attorney at law, but that was just a question.
That's the point of you saying once that year versus some people being charged twice in a year, or the actual increase they're increasing is like 3 or 4 times, you know.
Well, again, that would come before you. But the reason that we put this in here is if you have the landlord that increases the rent $500 a month and has nothing to back it up, that's obviously would be, up to you whether you're going to approve it, but those landlords are not going to fall within this exception.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I think you had a slide before that said that it won't apply to government-funded housing, correct?
That is correct, because.
Which is the ones that have been raised 2 times.
Well.
Or more. If I am following that story correctly, am I correct, Councilmember Goods?
It's owned, operated, or managed by a government entity, which I don't believe is the complex that you're talking about.
They receive money, but they're not government owned.
Right, they're not owned,
They're in
operated, or managed.
partnership with or
We
whatever.
can't enforce this on other government entities to do. Obviously, when the city does funding And, you know, I'm not gonna say from the beginning of time, but when the city does money now, they do have affordable housing restrictions that are placed on that.
I apologize.
I
Please
forgot where I
continue.
was. So the last thing is just the enforcement of a violation. This will be enforced by the Division of Neighborhood Enhancement with a fine of up to $500 and/or imprisonment of no more than 60 days and/or probation of no more than 6 months. We've also created a private cause of action between the landlord and tenant, so that would be played out in the court of law, but we have given them that right. We've also included in this ordinance the ballot language that would be submitted to the supervisor elections to go on the ballot. So all of that would be approved as part of the ordinance. So if there's any questions about the ordinance, I do, again, because I am a lawyer, have to reiterate the fact that no jurisdiction has done this since 1977 when the ordinance was enacted. There are many unclear provisions of this ordinance, including the definition of a luxury apartment, including the definition of a housing emergency. And so the likelihood of us being challenged is extremely high, and we can't predict the outcome of what's going to happen.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a lot of questions. Number one.
Excuse me. Are you finished?
I am finished, however, Ms. Travis does have a presentation for you.
Then I'll wait until Ms. Travis, and then we'll take it all at once.
Then let me go down the line. Again, I apologize for interrupting you. I normally don't do that. I always like to hear the presentation all the way through. Councilman Goode, did you want to speak at this time?
Well, I can see a few things have been watered down in it. I don't see the 5%.
That is something that we did the CPI instead of the 5%. However, that is something that if you decide as council that you wanted to limit it to the lesser of the CPI or 5%, then we can change that before a second reading and bring it back.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
It is not lost on me that we literally were just handed this, and before we decided to waive my previous resolution. So I'm actually going to request 5 minutes, because I know that we can't postpone this, but I haven't read this.
I apologize.
So I would like 5 minutes to be able to focus on this and not your presentation and this at the same time. Is that reasonable before we have Ms. Travis come, so that we kind of understand what we're talking about?
Without objections, we are in recess for 5 minutes.
Thank you.
I should have quit you a long time ago. I should have quit you, babe, long time ago. I should have quit you and went on to Mexico. If I had a follow my first mind, if I had a follow my first mind, I'd have been gone my second time. I should have went on when my friend come from Mexico at me. I should have went on when a friend come from Mexico at me. But no, fooling with your baby, I'll let you put me on the killing floor. God knows I should have been gone. God knows I should have been gone. And I wouldn't have been here down on the killing floor. Ask myself a question. Why do I have such rotten brains? Ask myself a question. Why do I have such rotten brains? Why am I always overworked? Most of the time I'm underpaid. Way people treat me, oh, it's gonna drive me to crime. Way people treat me, it's gonna drive me to crime. Just thinking that they love me when they hate me all the time. I feel like the life that I'm living, people, oh, y'all, it's just a waste of time. Seem like the life I'm living, people, it's just a waste of time. Telling people my trouble, and they don't pay me no mind. hear the same old story. Yeah, everywhere I go. Well, I rolling out tumble, cried the whole night long. Well, I rolling out tumble, cried the whole night long. Well, I woke up this morning, didn't know right from wrong. Well, I told my baby before I left that town. Well, I told my baby before I left that town. Well, don't you let nobody tell my bell out.
We are back from our recess. Can we have roll call, please?
Carlson. Vieira.
Here, here.
Maniscalco. Here. Hurtak. Here. Goods. Miranda.
Here.
And Citro.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you. Ms. Travis.
Hello.
Hi there.
Good afternoon. We meet again. Can I get my presentation, please? So Attorney Johns just presented the ordinance that you requested staff prepare for you. And I am coming before you as your economic development professional with 20 years experience. And I have spoken to most of you about this ordinance and the economic impact that it will have on the community. But I'd like to walk through the challenges that we're seeing in the community, like where we are with housing. A lot of the conversation even started in budget about putting resources for housing. We talked about tenant services, resources for housing. So I just want to talk through a little bit of that with you and then get to the economics as to why the rent stabilization ordinance is bad policy from an economic development perspective. So what we're seeing now is really a housing supply and demand imbalance. The reason the rental rates are pushing up so high is because there's no competition in the market for as far as apartments. If there were more vacant apartment units, the landlords, the apartment complexes would be lowering their rates, trying to capture your business. So we're in a housing and supply demand imbalance. And when we talk about housing, we've talked about this. I mean, I started in January, and I think we've talked about it almost every council meeting. You've heard the passionate pleas from the residents within the city asking for help. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about the housing continuum of care. In worst case scenario, we have homelessness. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have market rate homes. And so there's a space for all of us and organizations along this continuum, and City of Tampa is not the only resource in this housing continuum of care. For the homeless and emergency shelter, you know that we have launched our homeless services team that has provided 777 services and touched 467 client contacts. In the fiscal year 2022, we budgeted $12.8 million for homeless services. This also includes homeless prevention services. So we're talking about wraparound care and prevention methods. Sometimes we're paying rent and just keeping people housed. A lot of this work we do with our not-for-profit partners, especially with emergency shelter like Tampa Hope. This evening on your agenda, your council agenda this evening, you have $6.6 million, and that is funding that will be dedicated to homelessness. It's your home American Rescue Plan funding, that's another 6.6. So when you think homeless, it's not just for people that are unhoused, but it's also preventative measures from keeping people in their homes. So a lot of what we're looking at and what we've talked about, which you've heard from the residents this morning in every council meeting, is housing stability. They want to know that they have a roof over their head. They want to know where they're gonna live. They want to be able to have money to just meet their basic needs. I do not disagree with what we've heard, that housing should be a basic right of every human being. So that was a little off tangent, sorry. If I get sidetracked again, I promise I'll get back on there. In this middle of this housing continuum of care, you have transitional housing, community housing, and affordable rental. And again, City of Tampa is not the only provider. There is tons of money that's going to THA, the Housing Authority, thank you. I just went blank. The Hillsborough County are not-for-profit partners. Again, we are not the only providers in here, but what you have done through policy, through budgeting, through allocations, is that you have continued to try to ensure housing stability for Tampa residents. The other part of the housing continuum of care is the affordable home ownership and market rental. This is where your community redevelopment agency has really stepped up. You have down payment assistance to be stacked on top of down payment assistance that's federally funded. This is where the private sector and developers are also participating in this. And then again, we have general fund money that has been allocated to assist with getting people in homes and having them take a part of home ownership and build generational wealth. So the supply and demand imbalance that we have is really falling into the middle of this continuum. It's community housing, which is provided by the Housing Authority, affordable rentals, affordable home ownership, market rental, and homes. Our vacancy rate is incredibly tight. Just even if you look at the average home that's cost about $300,000, how much can you afford? What you would pay in a mortgage payment for a $300,000 home is different than what you could get. So if you have a $1,600 mortgage, you can get a house, but a $1,600 rental is completely different. And so there's just not enough supply. I want to talk to you about this supply imbalance. Really started pre-COVID, and this administration knew that when the mayor made it housing affordability one of her primary pillars of her administration. But this has been really a perfect storm. We have unprecedented population increase, with thousands of people that are migrating and moving within our city limits. Over the past 10 years, or between 2010 and 2020, we've had over 50,000 people move to the city of Tampa. We have record low mortgage rates. People are purchasing properties virtually because now they're working from home. During COVID, they can work from anywhere. Why not come to Tampa? And there was a moratorium on rental evictions, and so that kind of stalled rental rates as well. On top of that, we have supply shortages. And so it really has become a perfect storm for this supply and demand imbalance. I have to tell you that this does not, it's a trend that happens every once in a while. The market balances out and then we become in, I wouldn't say perfect balance. It's always escalated, but it is supply and demand. So what has been done so far and your progress towards affordability? I've heard a lot of comments going to council saying you need to do something, you haven't done anything. You guys have actually done a lot. And I think you need to give yourselves credit for that. Even the fact of voting to consider this ordinance today has captured headlines, has captured landlords' attention that this is an issue and have them talking. I think you really should give yourselves credit, and to Councilman Miranda's point and Councilman Goose, to shake some trees and get the conversation going. You have done that. And so over the past 3 years, we have dedicated over $100 million towards housing. You have directed staff to work on land development code changes with affordable housing as a specified use. You've expanded accessory dwelling units. You've added additional funds to our rental and move-in assistance program. Our infill land bank program, phase 3, is about to launch shortly. We have the housing hotline. We have the housing needs analysis that you've asked us to begin working on. And then we have affordable housing projects. I talked to you a little bit about supply and demand. These are new units that have come online from 2019 to 2022. Over 1,000 units have been constructed and are online. And these are the projects that are pending, whether it's funding, whether they're in the design phase, permitting. That's another 3,716 units. This housing supply imbalance is temporary. The rental assistance is temporary. The ordinance that you're considering, rent stabilization, is a temporary fix. And so we really need to, Councilman Goose, you started to say earlier that we really need to begin to incentivize or figure out how to get more units online quickly. So I just showed you what you have done, what we could do, and I'm not going to say that you can't declare a housing emergency. You can. But comparing to what Orange County, and we've told you along the way that the data is not necessarily there for us to make this decision. And I want to stress to you that should you do this rent stabilization ordinance, what may actually happen is our most vulnerable population will feel the burden of that rent stabilization. And so we don't know what the supply gap is. The housing needs analysis that we're looking for, that will tell us where the gaps are in the market and what housing unit types need assistance, boosting. We need to get more online, or where there's inequity, or I don't say inequity, but where there's room for us to help bring it more in balance. And I've talked to a lot of you about the evidence-based adverse effects. What Attorney Johns has expressed to you is that there's not a lot of municipalities that have done this. For the cities that has done this, I have scoured, I've been looking at this from the time we started talking about it. Different cities in other states. What oftentimes happens is that rental housing is then converted to owner-occupied housing. They take apartments and convert them to condos. Again, not helping our residents that are looking for rental base. If you do not allow for property owners to make or have reasonable increases to their rents, oftentimes it leads to decay of the housing stock. What also happens is that you create uncertainty in the rental market and in the pro forma of developers. And so when developers are doing multifamily development and there is some kind of ordinance that messes with their financial plan or any instability in that financial plan, sometimes the financing will pull out, and I'm going to give you an example of where that has happened. Rental stabilization exacerbates the problem. It is a short-term fix, but it exacerbates the problem more so than helping. Then you have to figure out, once you're in this housing emergency, when exactly are we out of the housing emergency? And that deregulation often exacerbates the housing crisis. As you consider this ordinance between now, when it's put on referendum, if it does pass, you can guarantee that landlords are going to hike their rents. They're going to shoot their rents up, knowing that they're going to be stable for a 12-month period. And then when that 12-month period is over, they're going to shoot their rents up again in case that emergency continues. And the people that are most affected by that are mostly people of color and our poorest people in our community. I want you to really understand that this is just a short-term gap, or it's a short-term fix. But the benefits do not outweigh the impact that it will have on the community. I'm totally off script, but I'll keep going. One of the other things that the research has shown is that there is evidence that rent stabilization promotes housing discrimination where it exists, it shouldn't, but where property owners or landlords They look at people that can afford more, or they're looking at their credit history and their biases when they're deciding who they want to rent to. There's strong evidence that higher incomes benefit from rent control, because that people that can afford more rent, if the rent is low, instead of moving up their housing options, they may just stay in that rent that is capped, in that apartment unit that is capped. And so there's no financial mobility for the people that are affected the most. If those units are occupied by people that can move up, people that are more financially better off often benefit from that. St. Paul, Minnesota, I shared this with you earlier, and I heard it in one of the comments earlier. St. Paul, Minnesota is one of the most recent cities that have enacted a rent stabilization ordinance similar to the one that was presented to you. It's pretty close to the one that was presented to you. A few months after passage, home values reduced by $1.6 billion. It disproportionately impacted their low-income property owners. Housing permits declined by 82% within months of passing the rent stabilization ordinance. And then multifamily developers that had units ready to move forward, had their entitlements, they were unable to secure the financing for their projects. And so to Councilman Goose, you always tell me, or tell us, don't tell me what I can't do, but tell me what we could do. And so what we can do now is support the tenant services team with the budget that is presented before you, support community land trusts. Mr. Elise Drumgo is working on the community land trust and is visiting other municipalities that have successfully done community land trusts. You've heard earlier with the CRA affordable housing allocation, you have 9.2, as your interim CRA director, you have 9.2 new ad valorem tax revenue that could be used and allocated to affordable housing. And so when the budget is presented to you in a couple weeks, you can direct staff, or we can look and see how you want to allocate that money, and if you want to do it to rental assistance or any kind of housing program. Other things that we can do is incentivize accessory dwelling units, proactive housing quality enforcement, landlord partnership programs, and we have a lot of advocates. We also think about advocates to go to Tallahassee to get full appropriation of the Sadowski Fund for affordable housing and for it to not be swept. You've heard that a lot here. And there's also something that you should understand. You've heard it from our attorneys before when we've talked about this. The city of Tampa is only a quarter of Hillsborough County. Housing markets are regional issues that are not related to the city. So if we impose a rent stabilization ordinance for the city of Tampa, development can easily move to Hillsborough County and pushes it out, not necessarily incentivizing development here. But that also could impact their housing market and make their rents go up. But I think that there's something that we can do and lead the way. Multi-jurisdictional level is pursuing an anti-gouging policy on the state level, which set rent caps several points beyond the CPI. And then we also can provide direct subsidy and other support for vulnerable renters, people that are at risk of being displacement. Our goal is for housing stability. This is a short-term problem, and it's just being exacerbated because no supply is coming online. So I don't think I have any other slides, but these are things that we can do. But I can't stress to you enough the economic impact that you will have enacting a rent stabilization ordinance. If you were to move forward with rent stabilization, if it were to pass, any impacts to property values, any impacts on the economic or the supply of housing will be directly correlated to the passage of this ordinance. I cannot stress for you enough that this is a temporary, rent stabilization is a temporary fix, and you have other temporary gap measures like rental assistance that are across other municipalities across the country that are being used as a tool to fill this gap until the supply catches up with the demand. I'll pause for any questions.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. I have a lot of questions.
Oh, my goodness.
So for example, with the exemptions, and a landlord can appeal and come to council. In the apartment that my wife and I had, they had to replace the air conditioning unit last month. What is an air conditioning unit for a residential? $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000? Huh?
No, it's 7,000. I can tell you because I just bought one.
Okay, what do you pay?
7,000.
So let's say $5,000. Can the landlord then, if they were to raise my rent, come here and say, well, I paid for a $5,000 unit, I got to increase their rent $500, and this is prohibiting me from doing so, therefore it's not economically feasible. From what I understand, they could come and appeal that to us.
That's correct.
And they could do that. If someone has to put a new roof on, if somebody has plumbing issues, if whatever it is, I just see it so wide open, the exemptions, that we're gonna have everybody looking for every little thing in an apartment saying, we did this and this cost me $10,000, $5,000, $1,000. What do you mean I can't, I'm losing money. I have to pay the mortgage to the bank on this property, and it's gonna be exemption after exemption after exemption. I can go on and on. Looking at, who else is exempt here? Luxury housing from the 1970s, whatever $250 is today with inflation is what, $1,200-1,300? That's not a realistic number because we see how much things cost.
And let me clarify about that,
Yes,
is
ma'am.
that we don't know how a court would interpret that luxury apartment definition because it hasn't happened.
Everybody says luxury apartments, and I see the quality, luxury, everybody slaps that on. So,
And that language comes straight out of the statute. And
no,
we
no, no,
have
I
that
know.
in.
Rental units for which landlords receive federal, state, local house subsidies, including Section 8. So they would be exempt. People that have come here saying, I live here, I live there, we're living in terrible conditions, call the state, the Department of Business Regulation, whatever, Secretary Griffin, they would be exempt.
And that is because those leases typically provide the specifics for the rental increases. If the rent is limited to a HUD rate, if that HUD rate increases, then the rent can increase with that. So that's why we exempted those, because those leases generally address that anyway.
Condominiums. My father lives in a condominium. There are rentals in that condominium. They are exempt from this, correct? And there's a lot of rentals there.
Correct.
Because I know one family owns at least a dozen, and it's not that big. Government agencies are exempt. Co-ops are exempt. Nursing homes are exempt. Okay, I can understand that. I don't know. I don't want to hurt anybody. I'm here to help people. Is this how many people will this benefit? Because all I see is exemption, and landlord's going to come and say, this cost me this cost me that. I want to help people today. And I'll finish with this last question. If we were to pass this today and goes to second reading and it goes to the ballot in November and it passes, because this is going to be fought, whatever, everything gets fought, everybody gets sued. If this passes in November, when will this become effective? January 1st, 2023?
It's effective upon passage of the referendum, so it would be November 8th, I believe, is the date. So.
And what if somebody sues the next day? Will it be held up and nothing can be implemented?
Potentially. No one can say for sure what might happen in litigation, but a litigator might well sue to enjoin the enforcement. We may stay the enforcement of it pending the litigation. All that would have to play out in terms of litigation, and it's hard to tell you exactly how that would play out at this point in time.
So there's a lot of what ifs. How do we help the person that's facing eviction next week? Or the person that came this morning and said, I can't afford my rent increase, I need help now. That's what I'm worried about, because I don't want to pass something, give false hope, and people say, I need help, come September, October, November, and here we are going, well, we gotta wait for the ballot, and there's people going to be out on the street when we talked about $5 million towards housing assistance today. We haven't talked about the CRA budget. East Tampa, Ybor City, there's so many CRAs, there's a lot of money there, downtown, whatever it is. I don't know if we can use that for housing emergency. What about the ARPA funds? What about any other avenues where we can get money today and assist people today with our tenant advocacy office? I want to help people now. I don't want a headline that's positive and rent control. I want to help people. I don't want to blow smoke and everything fails and we've wasted time and we've given people the assumption that we're helping when really nothing is going to get done or very little is going to get done.
So a couple things. Your CRAs, you have 3 CRAs that have budgeted in the current fiscal year and the upcoming fiscal year for housing programs and housing stability. East Tampa, Drew Park, West Tampa, they are doing affordable housing and should be commended for the programs that they've put in place. And so what we're talking about is new allocation of the $9.2 million, new money. And so downtown Channelside currently don't have any money budgeted towards allocation. You as a CRA board can direct not just the $9.2 million, the $40 million budget that you have for the 9 CRAs to do affordable housing. You have 3 CRAs that are successfully doing programs right now. So that's the one point. You're asking, what do we do for somebody that's facing eviction right now or someone whose rent has increased and need assistance? They call the housing hotline. The rental assistance program that you've put in place that we've put $5 million to is there to provide funding for that gap.
So I think what we should do as a CRA board, and that's a CRA discussion, is to allocate the maximum amount that makes sense to housing assistance. Those are dollars that are available now. How effective is this going to be? I want the most bang for our buck. I want to help people today, tomorrow, next week, not November 8th, pending whatever litigation. That's the thing is I want to do this the right way. I want to help people, quickly.
And you're doing that now. The last slide I had was, what can you do now? You've supported the tenant services team. You've supported the housing hotline. You've listened to the data. You've put $5 million. We've put $5 million of general fund money to help fill that gap. We're doing those things. You have policy changes to the land development code that's coming back to you in October. And so you are making policy changes and you're trying to fill the gap. But right now, rental assistance is what we can provide. We're working with Bay Area Legal, if anyone is facing eviction, to be able to help with those services. So you are doing things. I don't want you to think that you're not doing anything. Those things are happening now, and that is what will provide immediate relief. Even if the rent stabilization ordinance were to pass, or if this was to pass on referendum, it will be litigated, and it would likely not be November 8th when it goes into effect. In the meantime, the rental rates between now and November 8th will continue to significantly increase, and I just want to reiterate that the people that are most affected by that increase are people of color and the poorest people in our community. And so that temporary measure that this rent stabilization is going to provide, you have other tools and you are doing that. If we're gonna come back, you guys just 2 items ago, you asked us to do a SWOT analysis and come back with how this is working. We're constantly evolving, looking for ways of what's working, what's not working, how can we tweak programs, how can we do more. Just because I presented to you some bullet lists today on tenant services, that doesn't mean that the creativity stopped. It doesn't mean that we don't continue working with the community advocates and partners and trying to figure out ways. I am just urging you to be cautious of passing rent stabilization from an economic development perspective and how that would significantly impact this community.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll finish with this last statement. I know what a 3-day notice is. I know what eviction notice is. I know what everything about foreclosure. I know, and when you're faced those situations, you need the money right away.
Yes.
And that's not including the late fees and the penalties and the, we need assistance right away. And you've mentioned it. We're doing this. We have a budget workshop on the 16th, and we need to talk about applying more money, look at any other avenues. $5 million is great. Everything else you mentioned is great, but we cannot leave any stone unturned because this is a very lengthy process. It's not guaranteed, and the litigation, if it comes, I'm sure it will. We're in Florida, and I need to help people today. We need to be realistic and help people now.
Can I just make one point? Earlier you mentioned, are we using ARPA funds, or what kind of funds? Right now on our ledger, we have $69 million allocated for housing. This is money that's coming in from the state. You see these with allocations that come on your agenda. We get the money. They come in different tranches. 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. Right now we have $69 million that we're trying to put out for housing services. So it's not lost on us, and we're using every resource possible, everything that comes in. It's not just the $5 million. It's not just the $9 million of CRA. We have federal, state funds that we are just adding on. General fund just allows us to go beyond those federal limits.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before I go to Councilman Miranda, I would like to just say that there was 4 CRAs. Downtown also put in $10 million to acquire property on Tappan Street that was specifically meant for affordable workforce housing. Councilman Miranda.
Thank you very much. I'm nowhere near an expert on this, but I can tell you from my life experience, there used to be 3 big government subsidies program. It was Robles Park, College Hill, and Ponce de Leon. And to that transformation from the late 40s to present time, I guess, there's been some changes made that changed the outlook of a lot of people. I had the pleasure of living in one of those condominiums. Notice I didn't say affordable housing, because no one there could afford anything. 99% of the people didn't have a car, but they were all healthy because they walked. I don't care if they had to walk 3 or 4 miles to go to work and come back, they all walked. I remember walking from 26th Avenue and 20th Street, not I, but many of us, all the way to Jefferson High School and Highland and Euclid. And guess what? No one was ever late. Now you got a school bus, and the bus is late. So what am I thinking? Why am I putting this together? Well, when you look at Ponce de Leon and College Hill, they were certainly divided, but they were both in the same socioeconomic values. That has since changed, and what they transformed those two is to, like what we're talking about, the 4 and 6 unit apartments. They don't look like affordable housing or rent subsidized areas. You feel, I would imagine, I'm not there, but you feel like, man, this is nice. We didn't have none of those amenities. In fact, I don't even know how the people that worked for, at that time, the solid waste department would pick up the garbage. I don't see how any of them walk, because there was a hole in the ground with a metal strain and a top on it. You step on the top, it opened, and you dump your trash in. When the garbage man came to pick it up, he had to open that, carry it out, and take it to the truck. So things have changed. Certainly you don't do that anymore for a lot of injuries to individuals and the cost of that. The only one left is Robles Park. And that, I think it's in the works now to be completely changed to something like or even better than both Robles Park and College Hill. What does that give you? Just on the change of difference in building design and buildings of different motif and different figures, gives you a feeling of, you know what, I can do this. And it may just motivate someone to keep studying and to go to school. You see out of those housing projects, and I'm not talking about myself, there's an abundance of doctors that came out of there, an abundance of lawyers that came out of there, an abundance of engineers that came out of there, that when you go back and if you do a history of it, you just won't believe where they started. And these are the things that you have to give people an opportunity to develop themselves. You can't develop somebody. That person has got to develop themselves. However, by having a place that's now different, I would imagine most of these places come now with internet service and this kind of service and all that kind of service, which I don't even know how to do, don't want to learn at my age. I'd rather L and L, that's live and learn. I'd rather live, forget about the learning right now, about all that stuff. So I'm one of the ones that started with that, shake the tree, see what falls out, and today I've seen what falls out. There's 2 sides to every story, and my side is always the where if. Where if this doesn't work, what happens now? And I think I made this comment before. What if we give subsidies and at the end of 5 or 6 months, we're out of money and we're at the same place? What if we hadn't done that? What do you have? You have some funds. However, there's one important factor no one's ever discussed. Do you have the land available to build what you said you're going to build? Where are you going to get the land at? And how are you going to communicate it? We have buildings of 5 and 6, 7, 8 units together as a nice, beautiful building. And those are the things that we've asked for. We haven't got them yet, but I'm sure they're working on it. And when you find that out, then you can get a proximity of how long and when they're going to be completed. Renting them or getting them leased out is no problem. As we heard today and we've heard in the past, things are happening. They may slow down a little bit, but I think this area will continue to grow. Because people are like ants. You go get something, you take it in, oh, look where you went, and they want to go where you're at. And that's how society works. Most of the people that come from here are from the Northeast, New York, and the 5 New England states. They're used to different things than we are. They usually made more money than we did, had a better job than we did, and they had 4 seasons, thanks to Frankie Valley. And these are the things that you have to look at as to why they come here. Only here we only have 2 seasons, Christmas and summer. And summer is getting like 1 season because we haven't taken care of the environment. So I really like to see something done, but in a way that we can say it's complete. The building blocks are there. And I'm not against tenants. I'm not against the people, the landlords. I'm not against none of that. But what I want to see is some compromise where by us doing something and building something, that the tenants have a better right because now the landlord's saying, hey, we got competition. That's what I've seen today. It's incumbent upon us to do it right the first time. You're not going to have a chance the second time because people need it 5 months ago, not today. I can tell you that I run a small, to me it's small anyway, operation that I trust. And in that trust, in the last 3 months, I put 3 roofs and 2 new air conditioners. And the rent's never gone up. And it won't go up. And you can follow, you can check any one, I'll give you the address, you go and talk to the people who live there. But it is what it is, and not every landlord is that way. Certainly there's 2 that I know of, I'm not going to mention their names, that started the uprising, which I welcome that they started that because now the realization of fact is hit ground level.
Right.
And I think the city now has activated some items that would help the general public. Well, you mentioned them earlier. There's about 7 or 8 items there. And the city is putting not only our resources, but possibly the CRA's resources into building. If you don't build, you can never rent, you can never lease, you can always say, I'm going to do it, and never get it done. So it becomes then our problem to make sure that these things are delivered. But notice what I said earlier this morning. You should put in solar. You should put in different things. It helps the people that are going in to stay in, not to have a wonderful place you go in, and all of a sudden your electric bill is 1/3 of your rent. And I'm not against electric companies or anything like that, but technology changes. You're going from gas engines to electric cars. Who knows what's next? Maybe hydrogen. So what I'm saying is you have to take what you have in front of you and best make what you have. And I agree with Mr. Maniscalco. I like to solve the problem, not kick the can down the road. And the only way we're going to do this is by having a plan of the land and what you're going to build and how you're going to build it. And through your groups and the good people that showed up and have been showing up here week after week after week, to work with them to make sure that those units are built and leased out immediately. And I think you're going to have more customers than you have ability for. But that's just me talking to you, both of you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Goods.
When you do nothing, nothing happens.
That's right.
Now all of a sudden everyone's in a rush to do something. Well, we've been talking about this a couple of years ago. We said put money to CRAs for housing. Start building, start buying. Didn't do it. Didn't do it. Now because now it affects the upper echelon and their bottom line, we say there's a crisis, there's a problem. Well, it's been a problem, but you ordered the ordinance down. You got all these exemptions in here. You took the 5% out. And you did a great job with the time frame you had to work in, Ms. Jones. Got to give you that. You did it. But for me, when I look at it and look at the whole totality, all we did was try to say, well, the big question was, we're going to get sued. That's all we worried about. That's all we worried. We're worried about if we're going to get sued. We're worried about, that's what we're worried about. That's what cities do. That's what management does. Let's not get sued. And that's what this is the gist of what we've done. We watered this down, so hopefully we do get sued. It wouldn't cost us this, it wouldn't cost us that. People sue every day. The 5% should have stayed in here. All these exemptions, you don't even need all these exemptions. The bottom line is we keep talking about we're temporary. Well, if we would have kept it where it was, this would have been temporary too. It would have been temporary while everyone's coming here today talking about a plan, develop a plan. Well, while we have this temporary, whether if it goes or it doesn't, now we can say people are now working, understand, well, we don't know where this may go. We're talking about all these plans now of what we can do, but those take time. Those are temporary. You're going to run out of money. You're going to run out of money. How fast we're going to be able to build or get some developers in with incentives to have land space or find a study to say these number of apartments affordable, however you want to list it. So I'm disappointed that we took some things out. Disappointed that we have a lot of these exemptions that you didn't need, because all you did was open up a can of worms, a bucket, really for the landlords, and you opened it up. I know you tried to condense it down, but for legal matters not being sued. But when I look at all these exemptions, you have everybody saying, "Well, Lynn said her AC was $7,000. Well, mine cost $32. I knew a guy, that has a service, and he was, I can get you a better deal. So $7,000, yours was $10, mine was $32. So I'm gonna come in here because that's a wear and tear on the AC and say, well, I gotta up my rent. That's the normal wear and tear. ACs go up, maximum about 5, 6, 7, something depends. It depends on how good a unit you originally bought from the get-go. If you own a house, roofing repairs happen. You get a leak. All landlords aren't bad. You may have some again that want to gouge, which that's what's happening. How do we stop the gouging? We have to stop the bleeding somehow. We say, we do this, everyone's going to raise their rents. We don't know that. We're assuming that. We use the example of St. Paul, Minneapolis. It's cold as there. I ain't going there. It's cold there. Yeah, it probably started because it's cold. Everyone wants to come here. So it's a bad example that everyone's using. People to call, St. Paul, Minneapolis. They already got issues already. Bad example to me.
Councilman Goods.
Bad example. It's cold there.
It is cold.
I ain't living there. I ain't never living there,
But the facts are the facts.
And I get that in that tone, but that's there. That ain't here. Everybody comes to Florida. Everybody wants to be in Florida where it's hot at. Okay, how you look at it. Ms. Miranda said, we have more New Yorkers here than anything. Everybody from New York comes to Florida.
Which is why our population has increased.
Correct. So again,
supply and demand.
Right. So when are we going to start getting on the demand? When are we going to start doing the supply?
We're trying. I just showed you 37 units that's in queue permitting. We can't build them. The developers. 3,700 units that are planned, permitted, financed, or in some form of approval that is to come.
That ain't gonna help.
I'm sorry?
That ain't gonna help. That's not gonna help. 3,700 units. That's not gonna help. You got people here.
100% agree that we need more than that. So what I'm suggesting is some of the things that we can do, and I would like to continue to brainstorm. One of the things that we talked about, we touched on it very briefly in one of our workshops, is using the FAR density that's in the code and requiring affordable housing. You've talked a lot about inclusionary zoning. The only way that we can legally do that is through our bonus density. And so we're looking at provisions of working through that in the future. How do we incentivize developers to do more, build more? And I would like to continue exploring that. And every time we think of something, we bring it back to you. And if there's other ways to figure out how to help incentivize the supply, we need to be doing that. Because the supply is really the only thing that is going to help us with this demand that we have.
I believe you have some of the supply now, but we have not utilized some of the assets to get those assets. You have dilapidating houses all over this city, especially in East Tampa, that we haven't tried to fix up. Or haven't even tried to get out of probate, even take control, to see how we can be able to put people in those places. You got empty apartments all around town, that people say, well, the occupancy level. Well, there's nobody in them because nobody can afford them. I'm sure if people could afford them, they would move into them, but no one can afford them. Unless you've got a great job, paying good money, but the average person don't have that when they increase rent 3-4 times. So to me, I hear what you're saying. I respect all what you guys have to do, and you trying to protect the interests of everybody. But to me, I have to protect the interests of the people who are crying and struggling and say, I don't have a place to live. So whether this moves or not, my thing is we add the 5%, you take out all the exemptions, you send it to the ballot. If it passes, it passes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If somebody sues, they sue us, we move on. And then while we're doing that, we work with the developers, the apartment association, to develop a plan to bring the supply. That's all I could conclude with that.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Hi, I've listened to everybody. I agree about the 5% that was taken out, and I'm not sure why. And I also agree that since it's our ordinance, we can take out what we want. You don't want exemptions? Take them out. But the thing that I don't see in this one that I did see in the one that Councilmember Goods put forth last week was I'm almost positive that in that language it said the day of the ordinance passage would be the day that the prices would stop.
It can't go into effect until it's voted on in the referendum. It's gotta go to the ballot. Which is in November.
Okay, so then, so that answers that question for me. And then the only other thing that, adding to this giant laundry list of exemptions, if these are rental units for which the landlord receives state, federal, local housing subsidies, the other one, the hotel, motel, other similar establishments, it made me think about the issues that we just went through with code enforcement and everything for 4+ units. Would that be affected too? Would that be a part of what we couldn't? I mean, because according to state law, DBPR has jurisdiction over code enforcement. So
I think that issue's been resolved, and it's been determined that we do have more enforcement authority over apartment buildings that are 4 units or more.
Yes.
And this would not affect that.
Okay, thank you, because that was my question, was just because they have the code.
You mean that, are you asking if we can still do the enforcement for the quality of the units?
No, not the quality, okay. But would this apply to apartment complexes that have 4 or more units? Because
yes.
The code doesn't, they say, DBPR says that they have control over all of those. 2 separate things,
this would apply.
Yes,
okay.
The rental unit is specifically defined as a multifamily of 4 or more units.
Okay, and I mean, I agree with Councilman Goods. I mean, you're taking the number of exemptions, you're turning us into what this would do if it passes would just basically turn us into a not small claims court, but basically, I mean, that will be what we would do all week, and that's, so I don't agree with a lot of the exemptions. I agree with him on the 5%, and I mean, if we're gonna do it, let's do it. And if regardless, $5.5 million is not going to be enough. It just isn't. Like that cash outlay, I know we haven't had enough examples because we haven't gotten through all the complaints, or not the complaints, I apologize, the applications, the 3,500 applications. By the time we're done with that, I'm assuming that we'll have that $5 million spent. And once that happens, those people are still gonna need help next year. And again, the $5 million will then be accounted for. So we actually need a lot more money. I'm really, I mean, 20 million and I'm not talking about all these other wonderful things that we're also doing to help build housing and CRA money. I'm talking about just simply rental assistance. We need more cash. If we're not going to pass this and instead we are simply going to provide cash, I mean, you know what I mean, the RMAP services,
Yeah.
I want more money.
So I agree. The $5 million is just general fund money.
Mm-hmm.
You have money through your emergency
Yes, but
housing,
Well, we-
ERAP program.
yeah, how long does that last? Yeah, I mean, so we have to, and from my understanding, the reason we chose the general budget is because we have, we can do whatever we want with that money. I mean, within reason, but,
You go higher than the state guide, the AMI.
Yeah.
So instead of up to 120%, we go up to 140%, capturing more people that would otherwise not qualify.
exactly, so so something else that I'd really love to come back and maybe I just don't understand it, maybe I can sit down with you at another time, is, I think you said 60-some million dollars that are going elsewhere.
$69 million
So-
on the general ledger.
Yes, but what exactly is going to this other than that 5 million? And you don't have to answer this question now. I'm happy to take it offline. I know we have other things to talk about, but I really I want to understand how much is actually going
To
to
rental
this.
assistance.
Yes, to this, I've already forgotten the new name.
The tenant services team.
team. How much are we really giving out through that, or are we helping people get through that service? So,
So the tenant services team, in the budget, we put the $400,000 that you asked for, and the $5 million that's allocated in the current fiscal year is going through that team.
Yes.
And then you have another $5.5 million allocation for housing initiatives in fiscal year '23.
yes, but what additional money?
So I'll capture all the state, federal funds and general fund, and then show that to you that's going to rental assistance.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I want. I want the money that's simply going to rental
Just
assistance.
rental assistance,
Yes.
all buckets.
Yes. For me, you put the housing, helping people with down payment assistance and building the houses, just.
You just want rental assistance
Yeah,
line item.
yeah,
I got
that
it.
that just confuses the matter for me. Not that that's not important, but that's not really what we're dealing with now. And
It's housing stability.
I feel like this is just one more thing we can do to help people. So,
Councilman Vieira.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate everybody's comments on this, and whatnot. You know, something I said when we voted on this last week is, I'm big on not over-promising people things in terms of what, and I'm not saying anybody has done that here, just to be clear, et cetera, but I'm big on not over-promising on things that are forthcoming. For example, the issue on, there's a lot of unknowns on this right now. There's a lot of unknowns. One of the big unknowns is, and I think this has been said before, on luxury apartments. What constitutes that with inflation? What leases are going to be, under this proposed law? There's a lot of unknown things that are there. I want to support some sort of idea going forward, but there's a lot of principles that are very important to me. You know, getting sued, cities get sued, but smart cities prepare for prospective litigation. And when you have a red flag that you're going to get sued, you got to prepare the right way. And I just see a lot of red flags here. For example, a study, and this can be answered later, but don't we need a formal housing study, for example, for this? And if I may, Mr. Chair, let me ask that question. for this as a foundation, is it not expected to have a formal housing study to support against prospective litigation, or am I incorrect in that regard?
What the statute provides for is that you all have to make findings that there is a housing emergency so grave as to be endangering the general public, and also make a finding that a rent control measure or rent stabilization measure such as this that would be in effect for 1 year, and that's the maximum amount allowed by statute, would eliminate that grave housing emergency. The statute then goes on to say that if there's litigation about the ordinance and the enactment of the ordinance, the burden of proof is on the local government to back those findings. And so we've encouraged you all that we think a study would be prudent in this case, especially given the fact that no one has done this in 45 years since this statute went into effect. How that plays out in a court of law, whether, we put some facts and factors into the ordinance, whether that's enough, that would be ultimately a decision by a court. And again, no one has done this before, so we're in an area that what we are recommending, the more prudent way to go about it is to have a study to back it. But there's not a whole lot of guidance here, so.
And thank you for that. If I may continue, Mr. Chair. So given that, again, people say, hey, we could get sued on this. That's not the issue for me. The issue is, are we going to be able to have the foundation to defend a lawsuit on this? Because again, that goes back to the issue of overpromising. If we're going to do something, we got to do it right. We can't go 75 miles an hour in this 45-mile-per-hour zone. That's my big concern, as well as the unknowns. If we could pass something that would put some temporary measures on growth of rent for lower income people in the midst of this inhumane and barbaric housing crisis, I want that. Again, I want to find a yes on this, but I can't be part of something that is as presently forwarded, could not be calculated to help the people that we want to help. Again, I am not philosophically opposed to rent stabilization if it's narrowly tailored in time and in scope, et cetera. I'm not. But we've got to do it very important. Putting this for November, that's rushing the process in a way that's going to undermine the ability of this law, if it's passed, to survive past November. I think that's open and obvious. And I submit this out there for city council and whatnot. So there's a lot of considerations. If we're going to be litigation is often like a race. And if we're going to be in a race with very powerful entities, we got to make sure to tie our shoes. And right now, I don't think we're looking down to see if our shoes are tied. That's the issue I submit to council. See a lot of different opinions on there, but this is a big issue. Again, I want to get to a yes, but there's got to be a smart way to get to that yes, or a measured way to get to that yes, that is not going to undermine the people that we want to help. Not from a policy perspective, but by just taking everything away in litigation that wouldn't be properly prepared. Just again, my thoughts speaking from the heart. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Another bite of the apple. Go ahead.
I'd like to go ahead and just move that.
Can I make any statements here?
Yeah, I'll let you make a statement. I just want to go ahead and put it out there, and then you can move to your last statement.
Then go right ahead.
I'm just going to put it out there after Mr. Chairman makes his statement. I just like to go ahead and move that you put the 5% back in, take the exemptions out, and we go for a vote. And that way the people can know where we stand, we move on.
Is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
May I, Mr. Chair, speak on the motion?
Councilman Vieira.
Thank you. Me again. So again, with all due respect to everybody, and Councilman Goods, there's not a person on City Council with a better record on housing and affordable housing and passion, and he's moved the needle, et cetera. But this motion, as it's set, I respectfully say, if we move for this in November without a housing study, right? Again, I don't care if we get sued. What I care about is, are we adequately preparing for that lawsuit? This doesn't have the support. This should be given additional time for the study. I support the underlying principles, but the way it's being put forward, I think is going to collide with the principles that we want to put forward in this motion. And I think that the community needs to understand that, in my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Was there a second on Councilman Goods' motion?
I'll second.
We have a motion before us. Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilwoman Hertog. Let's have roll call vote. No, Councilman Goods did, we're done.
It's just to add the 5% along with moving the ordinance on first reading,
Taking exemptions out.
taking exemption out.
Other than, there are certain exemptions that would have to stay in there by statute, so they would, okay.
Vieira,
And for the aforementioned reasons, no. A proper, if I may, a proper motion for this would give this more time. This is in effect, well, I'll just say a proper motion for this would give it more time with the study so that it can be enforceable. I take issue with it, etc. Thank you.
Maniscalco?
No.
Miranda?
No.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Carlson? Goods?
Yes.
And Citro.
No.
All right, there you have it.
Motion failed with Vieira, Maniscalco, Miranda, and Citro voting no, and Carlson being absent.
And may I, Mr. Chair, say something?
Let's move forward, Mr. Vieira, please and thank you.
Okay.
Let's move forward, please.
Okay, just
Thank you
10
very
seconds.
much. We're going to go, Councilman Vieira, let's move forward, please.
Move to cancel the special call on August, what day you say?
22nd at 9 a.m.
Motion to cancel the special call on August 22nd at 9 a.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Move to open the 9:30 and 10:30 public hearings, all of them.
Second at 4:30.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda item number 39, E 2022-8, Chapter 2, I believe is a request to be continued by Councilman Vieira to the 25th.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
Agenda
Yes,
item number 39.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We need more additional time to work with some of the stakeholders on the language. I wasn't supposed to be here today, but if I may, to the next available council date, sir.
I have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the continuance only? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Carlson? Goods? Vieira?
Yes.
And Citro.
Is there any way we can quiet people down there at the, okay.
Citro.
Agenda item number 40,
Citro.
file number E
Citro.
2022.
You didn't vote.
I'm sorry, roll call vote, please.
You're the last one to
Oh,
vote.
yes.
Thank you. Motion carried with Carlson absent and Goose being absent.
Agenda item number 40, file E 2022-8, chapter 27.
Good afternoon, Council. This is Eric with this, Eric Kahn, City of Tampa Government Coordination Office. I'm here for the second reading. This is an amendment to Chapter 27 the section is 27-11. It has to do with the, are we pausing?
Any questions for staff? Seeing none? Is there a petitioner here? Or are we the petitioner?
No, this was, the city is the text amendment, sir.
It's an ordinance.
Okay.
General ordinance.
Motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Councilman Miranda, would you please?
Thank you. Item number 40, file number E 2022/8, chapter 27. An ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. an ordinance in the City of Tampa, Florida relating to formal decisions making revision to the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Chapter 27, zoning and land development, amending Chapter 27/11, creation of new lots, reduction of lot or land dimensions below minimum requirement, repealing all ordinances or part of ordinances in conflict within, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Second.
A motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote. Sorry. I'm sorry. Still getting used to recording.
Oh, Mr. Chair, may I state my yes vote? Because I can't.
You can't record.
Let's go back to roll call vote, please.
Sorry. Thank you, sir.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson, Goods,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Carlson being absent.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 41, file number E 2022-8, Chapter 27.
Sarah Cotton, Development Coordination. This is a second reading to an amendment to Section 27-132, the special use criteria, specifically the transfer of development rights.
Any questions for Mr. Cotton? Seeing none. Councilman Goods.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, file E.
Motion, move to close.
Move close.
Second.
This groove was lost about 2 o'clock this afternoon. We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilman Goods.
E 2022-8CH27, ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida relating to transfer of development rights, bringing revisions to the City of Tampa Code of Ordinance, Chapter 27, zoning and land development, amending Section 27-132, regulations governing individual special uses, repealing all ordinance or part of ordinance in conflict within, providing severability, providing effective date.
Second.
A motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson, Goods,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Carlson being absent.
Agenda item
Council.
number 42, file number VAC 22-17. Mr. Sammons.
Yeah, Ross Sammons, Development Coordination. It's, item number 42 has been presented for second reading, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none. Motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Okay, file number VAC 22-17, ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, vacating, closing, discontinuing, and abandoning certain rights-of-way located south of Wilder Avenue, north of Ellicott Street, east of 34th Street, and west of 36th Street, within the plats of Prince's Subdivision and Thomas Hyder Subdivision in the City of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, as more fully described in Section 1 hereof, subject to certain covenants, conditions, and restrictions, as more particularly set forth herein, providing for enforcement and penalties for violations, providing for definitions, interpretations, and repealing conflicts, providing for severability, providing an effective
Second.
date.
Motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote, please.
Carlson, Goods,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Carlson being absent.
Thank you very much. Next agenda item, file number VAC 22-18. Mr. Sammons?
Yeah, Ross Sammons, Development Coordination. Item 43 is being presented for second reading. I'm available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none?
Motion closed.
Second.
Motion closed by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, order of the City of Tampa, Florida, vacating, closing, discontinuing, and abandoning a certain right-of-way alleyway located south of Tarpon Street, north of Canal Street, east of Elliott Street, and west of Germer Street, within the map of part of Port Tampa City in the City of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, as more particularly described Section 1 hereof, subject to covenants, conditions, and restrictions, as more particularly set forth herein, providing an enforcement and penalties for violations, providing for definitions,
Second.
interpretations, and repealing conflicts, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote.
Goose,
Yes.
Viera,
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Hurtak.
Yes.
Carlson, and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Carlson being absent.
Before we begin on item 44, Councilman Vieira, do you have the verbiage in front of you?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Agenda,
And remember, these are public hearings, so you should ask for public comment before you move the ordinance, so.
agenda item number 44, file number REZ 21-87, formerly known as PH 22-75320.
Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. This is the second reading for the project known as The Heights. Just as a reminder, this is a rezoning from PDA R01, CI, CG, RM24, and RS60 to a PDA. I know the applicant is in the audience, I believe, today. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to try and answer them for you.
Any questions for Mr. Cotton? Seeing none. Ms. Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the record, I filed a substitute ordinance with the clerk's office for council's consideration. The substitute ordinance simply changes the effective date of the rezoning ordinance to make it effective upon the approval in the future of a second amendment to the development agreement for the Tampa Heights redevelopment area. That amendment to the development agreement is being finalized. We had intended for it to be on today's agenda so it could coincide with second reading on the rezoning, but that didn't occur. So rather than delay today's hearing, we're recommended you hear it today, approve it today, and then just changing the effective date. Thank you.
All right.
Any questions for staff? Are we hearing from Mr. Cotton?
No, sir, I just already,
I
unless you
think
have
you
any
should ask
questions.
any members of the public would.
I will do that. Thank you, Mr. Massey. Any members of the public that wish to speak to this item?
Move to close.
Second.
Before we close, I just want to say one thing. I thought this was a very good project. However, during the presentation of the first hearing, there was 3 oak trees that the petitioner never addressed as to why they were taking them out. That's why I voted no.
Move to close.
Motion closed by Councilman
Second.
Maniscalco, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Vera, you have the substitute in front of you.
Yes, sir, I do. I move an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance of the city of Tampa, Florida relating to an area rezoning generally known as the Tampa Heights Riverfront Development, the general location of which is south of Ross Avenue, north of the Hillsborough River, west of Franklin Street and Highland Avenue, and east of the Hillsborough River and North Ridgewood Avenue in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classifications, PDA, Plan Development Alternative to R01, Residential Office, CI, Commercial Intensive, CG, Commercial General, RM24 Residential Multifamily, and RS60 Residential Single Family to zoning district classification, PDA, Plan Development Alternative, providing for a repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Viera,
Yes.
Miranda.
No.
Hurtak.
Yes.
Carlson. Goose,
Yes.
and Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried with Miranda voting no and Carlson being absent.
Council members,
Yes.
can we hold off on information reports and new business until this
Absolutely.
evening?
Yes.
Yes.
I still need a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. We are adjourned until 5:01.
Thank you.